We're not going out. It just goes out at the end of your song or your theme tune. You know, the newscaster.
You're listening to Food for Thought Radio. Here FFTradio.com. Cluck, moo, oink.
Hello and good evening and welcome to Food for Thought Radio. This is the Farmers and Finance segment. I'm your host, Gary Glendale, and I'm with in the studio producer Paul. Are you there?
I am, as usual, producing away like Billy O. Gary, yeah, absolutely. Nice to be here, mate. After your enforced absence last Monday, me and the effing farmer held the fort. I made a right balls of it. No, it was great. We had a good little hour. It was fun.
Yeah, well, do you know what I was thinking? Because obviously this is all about, networking and communicating and, creating a vibe, as it were. I thought it actually might be a good idea to get myself and the effing farmer and the bowler hat farmer and yourself all in the same room together on the radio.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark Byford. I think that would be a formidable farming force, I think.
I think that would be great. Yeah, Mark just landed a week ago today. Yeah, it's Monday, isn't it, today? Last Monday, because he'd been in a sort of a kind of hiatus, actually been moving. I was going to say he'd been transitioning, but we don't want to use words like that around here, do we? So he'd been in transit, let's get it right. And he crash landed into Somerset last Monday. And I think he was up to his armpits in polytunnels. He was crawling around in polytunnels when I spoke to him briefly on Friday. Wow. But he's all settled in and ready to rock and roll. And I think he's been... his neighbour has got Starlink, the internet connection from Musk. He's got that. Yeah. And so I think for the first couple of days, he was able to sort of nick it with the guy's approval. But then he found out that there's some kind of metal shield wall on his garage and it's stopping the signal getting through. So he was talking to me about this. I said, well, just go down there and take it off. He won't mind. Just take off that, whatever it is, aluminium cladding that's around it, impairing the signal. But apparently it's rocket fuel. It's like 200 megabits a second or something. I don't know, instantaneous, so. Right. And I want to give my money to Elon Musk. I'm sure you do too. He hasn't got enough, really. You've got to take pity on the billionaires of this world.
Absolutely.
So, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, fantastic. Think of a time and we'll do it. How long do you want it running for? That's the key thing. An hour or 5?
Or we could get, we'll start off with an hour and then if it goes well, we can extend it. Because it's all everything is going to be about... Everything has to be starting off with the farmers community because, like you've said before on many occasions, food security is absolutely essential for the continuation of a sovereign nation, a sovereign country, to be able to feed its people. That is, that literally without food, if you've got somebody else controlling the food supply, they are controlling you. That's it. In the same way that, Kissinger said, who controls money controls the world. He said, who controls the food supply controls the people. And that's what they want. And in the talk that I've literally just done, I pointed out that the reason they went for the control of the money and the financial system and then the energy companies and utilities is because the infrastructure of those things can still run and people not know that they've been infiltrated or taken over. However, when you are physically kicking somebody off of their land, that is something you cannot hide. When you're actually taking somebody's land off them, a hostile takeover. And they are literally in the final stages of their plan. And so this is why I'm just like, right, well, the first thing we need to protect financially, and then security-wise, are the farmers themselves. But unfortunately, everybody has been dumbed down so much to the point where they will allow crimes to happen and then maybe not even blink about it, not think about it, not question what's right and what's wrong. with it. Oh, that's just the way it is. You know, the apathy and all this crap. See, and this is, funnily enough, this is actually what Jesus was teaching about and warned everybody of. And we wanted us to start thinking for ourselves. You know, when he said, "Let he who has never sinned before cast the first stone." It's like, oh, actually, there might be some morals and ethics in that. Yeah, what am I doing? Because this could actually be me. You know, what's but the thing is, though, obviously, those are the top, those in charge. That's the last thing that they want. They do not want people thinking for themselves at all. They want people to do as they're told because they are beneath them, because we are genetic abominations.
Yeah.
And of the way they
we may even be, I suppose, Gary, we might even be their genetic abominations. You know all this thing about being called cattle and everything. I don't really mind. In other words, the language of what is really abusive language that they may use, I find it really rather comical in a way. I feel as though there's very little verbally that they could say that's going to shock me anymore. I know it probably shocks other people. They come out with some incredibly weird, crazy, gooky little stuff, right? It's a bit mad. But there's obviously some ancient sort of lineal reason for this. And I was talking to someone the other, I can't remember who it was, just something, you're talking about dumbing people down. And I keep thinking that, why is it that we can't figure everything out? I know it seems like an asinine question on one level, but it seems to me inordinately difficult to sort of get your brain around certain things. And then a few years pull away and suddenly all the pennies drop. Oh, there it is. Why was I having so much difficulty with that? I don't know if you've had moments like that. I have. All sorts of things. You suddenly go, you thicko. Why were you were looking at it for 2 years. You couldn't see it. No. Yeah. It's like a cloud comes into your head. Do you know that sort of feeling of sort of like, fog. Have I just disengaged from my intelligence because I can't find it anywhere? It seems to have gone. Yeah, is that. There's something wonky with us, slightly wonky.
Well, that wonkiness, I would say, is all by design. That's why they're changing the frequencies in the music. Or did they change it from 440 to 442 or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. And even, the whole thing with the buildings in the 19th century, the resonance in the cathedrals, the fact that, well, not the fact, but that it looks very strongly to me like the cathedrals have basically almost like, and this is wrong to some degree, but they've been hijacked in a way. They were healing centers. Yeah. All of these things, every single area that you look at, the buildings, the food, the air that you breathe, the sun, the calendar, everything, you go, they've interfered with the lot. From the moment you arrive. You get enrolled in their club and they don't want you to see outside of the parameter that they've put, or the perimeter, I should say, that they've ring-fenced the club with. You don't need to go out there. But I want to. No, you don't need to. It's all fine in here. You listen to us. We know what we're talking about. Yeah, it's that kind of stuff.
We'll protect you. It's for your safety. Yep. We'll look after it for you. Never you mind.
Absolutely. And the apathy that you were mentioning as well, which I think we all have got an individual fight with. I think you have to fight it, sort of, in a way. Fight's possibly the wrong word, but I think an ingredient as well. And when we come to looking at currency, so you're training me well, right? When we come to looking at, I'm using the words more accurately. Absolutely. I just used them loosely for years, but I always knew what I was talking about. But I understand. So when we look at our currency club that we've been enrolled into their currency club, haven't we? We didn't know, but we have been. And one of the great powers that they have on their side is that I think it harnesses the greed that lies in all of us. Let's call it greed to start off with. It's not that I'm saying people are greedy in that sort of hideous cartoon-like type way, but the acquisitive gene that we all have based on survival, which means we then get some protection, coming back to that word, it's as if they've been able to coordinate all of it or just utilize that aspect of our nature. And this is why you get people, when you're talking about all of these sort of currency projects to make more currency, get into this business and get into that. There's always this sense that if you get in early, you know that phrase, get in early, and you're thinking, great, okay, I'm in, I'm a winner. Of course, what you're failing to take into account is the vast majority of people won't be, and you've got to live with them. Or you're going to live with them, actually. You don't got to. You just do. You live with them. And so it subtly puts all of us in competition with one another. and put stress points into our structures. It just does, you know. I mean, people go, "Oh, I'm not affected by money," but if you've got 3 or 4 guys sitting around a table and you put 50 grand in cash on the table, watch what happens.
Yeah.
It's just the worst of us comes out, and that's harnessed somehow. It is a spiritual fight internally about where does value lie, what's moral, what's ethical, and can you see that that's infinitely more valuable than just having a bit of cash right now. Unfortunately, for most of us, for most of our lives, we don't see that. We go, give me the money, and it's part of our own sort of, I think, individual battle that we have to fight.
Well, I saw a video the other day of a guy in the States going around offering people, I can't remember how much the silver bar was, but it was a big chunky silver bar, or
Yes.
a Hershey's chocolate bar. You know what would you like? And all of them
Chocolate
chose
me, mate.
the Hershey's chocolate bar. And it was just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
smart
that's
cookies.
right, you know, he needs a bit of silver and he can't do anything with it. Whereas you can munch on a nice Hershey's chocolate bar, can't you? You know, like
Well, you know.
literally, obviously you could tell by, even though he was sort of mocking them and being sarcastic, I think underneath he was just in absolute despair at the level of ignorance that there is out there. But my point of view is that, you know, obviously they were right in some respect in the fact that, you can't use silver. However, if they had any intelligence, they would take the silver, sell it, and then buy like 1,000 Hershey bars with it.
Yes.
You know? Whereas they just simply took what they knew. Now, since they just simply took what they knew, they were just like, well, I've never dealt with silver. I don't really know what silver is. I don't understand the value of it. But I do like Hershey's chocolate bars. Yeah. This is where utility comes in. So at the moment, you've basically got like the military and then tech companies using silver, and everybody else is just simply hoarding it like a Ponzi scheme, restricting the supply in order to make the price go up, which just simply gets moved on to the consumer products. Yeah, they're effectively holding silver hostage, you know, for all these tech companies who then have to buy it. So if a commodity comes around, a digital commodity comes around, where people are just like, oh, right, I can actually use this. So I can use the network that this gives me access to for all of my digital requirements that I effectively don't have to pay for, because anything that I'm actually using, I'm paying for with equity that I accrued from nothing. So effectively, it's free anyway, and this thing just keeps going up and up and up because it's infinitely divisible. And then, and that's what people do see. They're just, all right, number go up. Well, yeah, I understand that number goes up on that. They might not know how because they're the ones not buying huge amounts of bulk in it. But like I've said before, if you're a small to medium-sized enterprise and you have huge amounts of data costs chomping away at your profit margins, because you're paying the likes of Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Cloud, and suddenly you go onto a pay-to-use network that literally reduces the cost of storing data by a factor of about 1,000, that's massive. And so they're then buying it to save themselves money, and the end user, like those who are like opted to buy the Hershey's chocolate bar, what they see is number go up. And then they're just like, right, well, what would you rather have now? Sort of $50,000 in plastic and paper that they're doing away with and they're going to confiscate off you and they want to take capital gains from, or $50,000 worth of Bitcoin. Suddenly they're just like, well, that Bitcoin's actually probably going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today, whereas that fiat currency, that's definitely going to be worth less tomorrow than it is today. But again, that's what causes this consumerism, where people are just like, well, this, you know, like plastic confetti is going down in value, so then I may as well spend it while I've got it. So then you end up going out and buying shit you don't need. You buy more houses than you could ever live in. You buy more cars than you could ever drive. All because you're trying to find a way to hold the value of the medium of exchange that you've got. You know, so
you're trying to also, I think. Sorry.
When utility is realized, and this is what I'm trying to explain to people, there's initially the fundamentals of how it works, and then after you know how it works, you can then actually see it in action, and you're, all right, I was told this was going to happen. And if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So that's really all I'm doing with Bitcoin and, to the farmers right now. I'm literally trying to explain it to them so they can see it in their mind and then hold it in their hand. So then when this prediction that we're talking about happens, literally a quantum change in the universe, certainly in the financial landscape, that's when everything changes. And these people who are choosing the Hershey bars, well, they actually become involved in it. And they become more educated, and therefore they don't make stupid decisions.
Yes.
Because they start acting.
Of course, there's no guarantee against
influence.
that, although I want to go with the flow of what you're saying, but there's no guarantee that people won't make stupid decisions. Of course, it all depends to some degree the groups that they run in. You morph into the context, the people, your friends or your associates are a reflection of you because they're based on your value system and birds of a feather flock together, all that kind of stuff. And there are some pockets of people where there's, getting that sort of intelligence into that space is going to take a few atom bombs, I suspect, but they might be available to do it.
Well,
I think
they might start thinking, they might start using their brains. And that's what that's what the elite don't want us to do. They don't want us to start thinking, let he who has never sinned before cast the first stone. They don't want people questioning or thinking about anything. Whereas, suddenly, if you get a number go up and everybody can see it, well, if the number goes up, it's a bit like the story about the goose that laid the golden egg. If it keeps laying golden eggs, people are, there's going to be another golden egg tomorrow and another golden egg the next day. Yeah, I mean, you are going to get stupid people that are going to be like, oh, right, so if we cut that swan open, then we're going to have an unlimited supply of golden eggs. Well, actually, no, that's not the case. So there are always going to be that, but there are going to be most people who have just been literally walking around like zombies, because that's what they want, glued to their phones and looking at all the bullshit on the mainstream media that they own and control. They might actually start waking up and start making decisions based around value. And then also, I can tell you, when somebody feels like they're rich, they do not like being dictated to at all. And then they start, making decisions and thinking about how they can protect themselves and their wealth. And eventually, this sort of form of protection leads on to them realizing, well, hold on a minute, I've actually got to protect the community that I'm in as well, because it's the community that's going to protect me. So, birds of a feather flock together, strength in numbers, and hopefully, I mean, I know this is an extremely, this is an extreme example I'm going to give, and it's heartbreaking, but I mean, it just goes to show you the level of corruption here. Did you see that Spanish girl? I think they call her Noela Castello Romero. Here we go.
I think I've caught a glimpse of it. She's gone to Switzerland or something. It's something really tragic.
She didn't go to Switzerland, mate. She didn't even go to Switzerland. So she was taken away from her family, and again, it looks like they had absolutely no right to do that. Put amongst all these, asylum seekers, gang raped by them, ended up throwing herself out of a 5-story window trying to commit suicide, and sort of found herself as a little bit of a quadriplegic. However, that was bruising. The video I saw was where she was on crutches. I mean, her legs were still screwed, but she was just sort of getting up and starting to move around. And clearly, that's not the actions of somebody who's given up. That's the actions of somebody who's been in a serious accident, who then is just like, well, actually, I've got a second chance here because I'm not dead. But because she'd already said that she was, they assumed that she wanted to be euthanized because she'd chucked herself out of the window. They suspect that her organs had been sold. But when her friends and family went to go see her, before they said, she's we're going to euthanize her, I suspect that the reason they didn't let them in is because, one, they'd either already killed her, or they didn't want her parents and friends going in, listening to her saying, I don't want to go through with this. So the state literally murdered her, and nobody's doing anything about it because the courts are all corrupt. The state is in on it, literally, and it all stems from their control of the financial system, which they're then using to control the energy and the food supply. That's where it starts and stops with, mate. That's the only hope we've got. So if we can get the farmers on this, and then most people will follow. Certainly, if you've got leaders who know their stuff, They're like, look, no fines or forfeitures without conviction from a jury of peers and due process. No victim, no crime. No claimant, no claim. No contract, no obligation. Why are you here? Are you breaching the peace? All this stuff. And the main thing is obviously, traffic fines and all. Well, that's a breach of the peace. The Royal Mail was meant for private communication. It was never meant for commerce, to try and extract funds from people unlawfully, by breaching the peace, by sending them and also GDPR. Where do they get their information from? We're private individuals living in the private. We're meant to know everything about the government, and the government isn't meant to know anything about us because we're private. But this is how topsy-turvy the world is. And when people say, well, how bad can it get? Well, the example I've just given you is pretty much it. Except, she'd thrown herself out of a window. Then it won't be people that have thrown themselves out the window. It will be people that have different political points of view. Like people who don't want to be controlled. It will be farmers who don't want to give up their land. That's what's coming.
It's a slippery slope. Obviously, maybe a slippery chasm or something. I think as a group, people who consider themselves to not have a great deal of power, when faced with a situation where there are powerful groups, and it's always groups that are the intimidating factor, will always cleave to the group which has the most power as a point of survival. And because I think, understandably, although wrongfully, but understandably, people view the government as being the entity with the power. This is why you get a lot of sort of apathetic compliance with these diktats. If I just leave it alone, it'll go away. How's that working out for everybody? They've never gone away because they take it as encouragement to ask and take for more. And they find very polite ways of pilfering your pocket, charmingly. Nice ways of doing it, but effectively draining you down with no value back to you. So, and the other thing about the sort of let's make a lot of currency and survive this philosophy, which I don't go along with, is there will, in due course, I mean, it could be hundreds of years away, and so some people selfishly think, well, as long as it doesn't affect me in my lifetime. I've heard that from people. It makes me puke, right? I just can't. Oh, I won't be around to see it all. How do you know? You might come back as punishment for being such a lazy twat the first time round. Okay, you got to get off your ass. Absolutely. But I think, it's a bad approach. I think it's the only approach at the moment. I'm always open to learning new ones, but an approach is you say, look, if I get financially or monetarily strong, if I do that, my job is not to run away. That's not it. It's to stay. I have to stay because the value, you see, if you've got purchasing power, which is basically what money confers upon you, the more of it you've got, apparently you've got purchasing power for what? Well, for whatever your village, town, nation is producing. If it doesn't produce anything, it's like you, me, on an island. And I go, Gary, look at this. We've got loads of gold and silver. You go, yeah, but we haven't got any tiramisu. There's no spaghetti to buy, right? There's nothing. We're just going to have to go fishing. You forget the gold and the silver at that point in time is not worth a great deal in terms of us getting through to the end of the week, is it? Not much.
Absolutely.
If some boat comes by and they really love gold and silver and they've got loads of stuff, we go, right, okay, of course, they'd probably try and kill us if there are only the two of us. I mean, you just look at how it's always unfolded like this. They've got more stuff. Just take it off them. That's what happens, particularly if no one's looking, which is, also part of it as well. But our way through has to be to stick together as, rebellious peasants, really. Actually, not really rebellious, but we're looking to restore a true peasant life, which is the richest one of them all. I mean it. I'm not arsing about. I mean, you look at all the guys that move in power circles, they actually get chewed up spiritually. Most of them don't survive it. They become the very demons that they said initially when they were younger men they were opposing. But if they go into that space, you can't change it. It's a pit in there. It's very, very difficult. Only a few come out of it and survive unscathed with any level of integrity left because you're outnumbered. And that's the problem. Group agreement is a devastatingly stupid and powerful thing. You have to get away from it. It seems to me, it's a crazy creature. What's that thing? People in crowds basically lose. There's no brains in a crowd. You've got to get away. There's none. It's sort of, the larger it is, the more stupid it gets, and the more prone it is to being scared. Hence the protection racket. It's very, very effective. I think the other thing maybe to try that I keep thinking about as well, and it's, we're using a lot of words, and we're going to keep using a lot of words until we use less and less and have an even bigger effect. But the whole idea of a bank is built on all of these negatives that you've been touching upon. So the main one, or one of the main ones, has been, we're going to store and protect your wealth. That's what they've said, right?
Yeah.
They've always said that. Because, there's lots of rough guys around here with sticks. Some of them even got guns. They'll come and take it off you, But look at our big building. Okay, you say, and off you go. And, of course, they make hay while you're stupidly thinking that they're looking after your money. But, of course, as we know, it isn't your money. It's their currency, which you've been deceived into thinking is yours. And, everybody well, I don't know if everybody knows it. If there's a run on the bank, you ain't getting out. And isn't all sorts of rumours, let's call them that, floating around, that there's going to be a sort of bank bail-in or whatever, in which case you ain't going to have it. Terribly sorry, sir, you can't actually take any money out right now. When can it? Well, we can't tell you that. But don't worry, it's going to be fine at some point. So the thing about the wallets, about owning BSV, is an idea, is you are now your own bank. The network itself provides all the service that the bank said it was providing but never did. You've actually got it without having to go to a third-party service agency called a bank. You don't need to go there anymore. Yeah. So these are very subtle, simple things that we're looking to get across. Your wallet, your stuff, you are effectively a bank. Well, you're doing everything that a bank does. Not only that, you've got the funds directly under your control. You're the one that says when it goes. You're also the one that's responsible for not losing your wallet keys. Yeah. Don't lose those. Because you've lost it. You see, it's like saying, don't set your house on fire. Well, you won't have anywhere to live. Don't do it. It's really dumb. So it's that thing about breeding a culture, which I think would come back quickly. I am optimistic about that, of sort of self-replicating individual responsibility. If you're around responsible people, you pick up very good habits. If you're around irresponsible people, you pick up very bad ones. So it's a matter of setting tone and then setting that, amplifying that tone out into wider and wider circles.
Well, those people that set themselves responsible habits, the reason they've got a responsible habit is because they have thought about their circumstances. So they're like, all right, so I've thought about this circumstances and this is the best way to deal with it. Whereas literally at the moment, because they take, supposedly they take care of everything, people have literally become so irresponsible and reliant on others. Like literally to the point where, I had a chap the other day who was just like, oh, well, I didn't write my password down. How can I find it?
Don't know.
Yeah, like, you what?
Did you not have it tattooed on your leg?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just,
that might be a good use for tattoos, actually.
People are so used to just sort of calling the third party because they obviously own and control it. Like your bank or your email provider. Oh, have you forgotten your password? Well, never mind. Here's how you can just simply recover it. Well, the reason they can recover it for you is because they own and control absolutely everything about that site that you're using. They have got you by the short and curlies. Literally. Yep. People have literally become like that in everything. Their expectations have changed. Oh, somebody else should do this for me. Well, if somebody else is doing it for you, you don't realize that they actually have control. You're thinking, oh, well, this is easy. This is great. But, it's a bit like being a king. Well, this is how Amschel Rothschild basically took over and started controlling all the kings because he was doing it for them. Oh, I'll look after your money for you. I'll lend some money to you. I'll do this for you. You use me for everything. And then before you know it, he literally becomes invaluable. And then, he starts turning the screws, turning the pressure up. Oh, well, because that's how you create coercion. That's how you end up getting your way with leverage. Whereas if you literally don't know anything and you are reliant on other people, you have no leverage. You have not got a leg to stand on when the shit hits the fan. And you've let it become like that. Whereas, like
I mean, I guess you could blame the weakness in greedy kings. Not that all kings have been bad, but probably more useless ones than good ones. Although I don't know. I never met any, to be quite honest. Maybe some of them turn out to be really top blokes,
Mate, you're
but they
a
end up
king.
being.
we are kings. We are the chief executor, sovereign king. All of us.
Getting people. I'm with you. I mean, just getting that to become a kind of experiential reality for individuals is part of this process. Because I don't think we can take people. I don't think anybody could go cold turkey on the currency club. You can't do that. You could try, but I think it'd be very, very difficult.
How do you mean cold turkey on the currency club?
Literally just disconnect from the banking system overnight. You can't, in other words, say, right, I'm taking all my assets, I'm putting it all into BSV tomorrow morning, and that's that. That would be very difficult. Also, I think it might be counterproductive in the sense that you'd send out all sorts of warning signals to the other side. It'd get all, we need, this is my take, maybe I'm being too reasonable about it anyway, but I just think it's like a transition process, because I view the currency club, as it were, that you are an enforced member of, as a club that has turned us into drug addicts. The drug is interest-bearing fiat money, and you need more of it next year than this year to get the same amount of hit in your life, the same amount of beef, the same amount of carrots, right? Because it's designed that way. It's very subtle. And everybody's, well, these are economics. Well, it's not really economics. It's actually banking, perversion of the system. But that's exactly, people believe that, and that's the problem. Once beliefs get entrenched, they become pretty difficult to sort of prise out of people, almost like for physiological reasons. I think, this is why as people become more mature, let's use a kindly word, that's supposed to have happened to me as well. I think literally in the brain, as you've laid down behavior patterns, it's almost like they actually do create furrows in your brain, like main highways. You go, but I've always done it like this. Well, we know. That's why this sort of thought path in your head about, I don't know, cooking carrots or whatever it is so, well, my mum did it like this. Never, yeah, but this is a much better way. You'll get more I can't be bothered. It's that kind of stuff. The sort of, it becomes more difficult for people to change their habits, and particularly when they've got entrenched beliefs, which are generally, I think, things that have gone into people's heads and they didn't examine them much, if at all, on the day that they arrived in their head. They went, oh, that's all right. And it takes root. And then time goes by, and it's very difficult to get people to see that they may have made a mistake, particularly as they get older. Me, make a mistake? I don't think so. I'm right about this. It's, a lot of it's to do with human psychology. It really is. So it's like the more we understand about ourselves as individuals, the more we may be able to help other individuals that we're a part of and say, oh, I think I know what this guy's going through because I had to deal with that. And yeah, it's a bugger. But look, we've got a faster way of resolving this one. And I think, that aside, which is a more sort of delicate, finicky kind of approach, we have to re-engage with the masculine will to power. I'm quite serious about this.
Yeah.
We absolutely do. Yeah. Because a nation, which is a tribe of people that loses that, and look at England, everything's okay, right? Well, yeah, we were horrible. We did all these things. Look, horrible things did happen. Every race and tribe has got horrible things and had horrible people in charge. Every single one. But I would suggest we've had more good ones at the helm intermittently than the most. Not everyone, but the most. We've had some amazing people as well. And it's about will to power. You go, how do you want life to be lived? I want it to be lived under a particular law framework that's given to us. Actually, it's not my choice. This is the thing that's acting on us, and it's why we're in so much trouble right now, because we're not. So it's that assertive, at times, masculine communication that is required. And it's not pussyfooting around. There are basically hard lines in this thing. And you go, if you breach that, you're going to unleash 50 years of hell on our people. And I'm not letting you do it. I won't let you do it. You might kill me in the process and achieve it, but for me, it's worth it because I know what's coming up if we let you get away with that. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's some, as you mentioned earlier, there's too many in that bureaucratic space that are getting away with things because not enough peasants are gobbing off and brandishing the pitchfork, metaphorically speaking. There needs to be a lot more brandishing going on, if you know what I mean.
Well, so, I would say even sort of brandishing the pitchfork and stuff like that, I would say that needs to be controlled. That needs to be orchestrated. So it's just like, well, when do you have the right to brandish that pitchfork? At what stage? Like, you need to recognize this, and also what you don't do is pull out a pitchfork when it's just you against 10 others, because chances are it's going to be taken off you and used against you. So, you need to know when and where, and, understand the situation that you're in. So at the moment, what they're doing is they're going for individuals in society who are literally, because they move first. That's what these bastards do. They move first and they pick on individuals who are vulnerable, who haven't got the means to defend themselves, or not right then and there anyway. They're literally like they're like wolf packs. The Fabian Society, a wolf in sheep's clothing. A wolf very rarely hunts on its own. A wolf always has a pack that it's with, and that's what this lot do. They go round in packs and choose their targets when they're vulnerable. So it's kind of like this is where we literally need a call to action, where local people can literally form quickly with the knowledge at hand to know what's going on. But not only the knowledge at hand, they also need to have the confidence that there is a power there behind them to back them up that will be on its way as well. So they need to know, well, this is how we keep them at bay, because we know they haven't got a warrant that is genuine. It's certainly not signed. We need to know each of their names, because they've turned up here claiming that this warrant is genuine when it's actually false and they can't prove it. Well, let's get some higher ups down here as well to make them submit. You need to prove that warrant's genuine, because if you can't, you're the one that's here now breaching the peace, and you're the one that's going to be taken off. So we need to reverse that power, and it's going to take networking, but the networking is going to come with financing. And it's like I said, people will unite due to economic incentive. They will vote with their feet. And unless you're already in with these scumbag bastards who literally, bribe and coerce their own network, but look after them financially. Okay, here's $1 million, here's $2 million, shut up, do your own thing, don't bother us kind of stuff. Well, that only works for a very short time. Once they've got rid of the majority, they will then turn on them. All those people that have taken the bribes, because they know that they've got no moral scruples whatsoever. They haven't got the confidence to say, no, this is wrong. So they're just like, they're just going to be next. That's how it works. So it's kind of like, for me personally, when I know this, it's kind of like, all right, well, the people who don't know this, all we need to do is maybe explain it to them, so then they can see it, because a lot of people can see it, they just don't know what to do about it. And to be honest with you, I mean, I still don't know anybody that explains Bitcoin in the way that I'm doing and the protocol. And to be honest with you, if I didn't know about Bitcoin, I would be in absolute despair right now, because I could not see a way out of this. Because the only thing you could possibly do is just simply replicate the system that they've already got. And their system is thousands of years in front of yours already, backed up by MI6 and MI5 and all the corrupt coppers in the police force.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
So
it is.
I mean, a lot of these people who don't understand Bitcoin, I mean, they're either deluded in their own ideas, which I suppose they would have to be in order to think that it would actually work, and to keep going and not give up. But eventually, when they find out that their ideas won't work, it's going to be a hard one for them to deal with, because all hope will be lost, and that's when people can lose their minds. I know that's what caused me to lose my mind, when I just literally lost all hope. But now that I fully understand Bitcoin, I can see this is the only way. So now I'm here talking about it every day.
Yeah, no. I mean, in terms of this aspect of so-called civilized behavior, yeah, it is. Absolutely. I think one of the, another aspect to this, I'm always prone to saying this is the thing, but it's actually not true, because I don't know. If there were one thing and we both knew it, we'd be having our finger on that button tomorrow morning or immediately. Yeah. That's the thing, you've got to press that button. I don't know where it is. It's a combination of factors. But the reason why, I guess, I'm making some assumptions. The reason why you are galvanized by it, why I am, and why others that you know and that I know are getting that way, or maybe even more so, is that something has happened to them as individuals, some insight occurred, some moment, maybe some experience that was probably unpleasant, probably you're not in your comfort zone when it happens, and it shakes your entire sort of basis of what you've assumed in life. I mean, that's what happened to me, but it's exhilarating as well. I mean, there's a positive on it. After that moment, you're kind of faced with, oh, right, okay, I've seen that there's this issue. I'm going to keep looking at it. The more you look at it, the bigger it gets. You go, good grief, it's everywhere. It infects everything. Now, how do we get people? In other words, maybe part of our job is to bring people up to the fire and let them get burnt by it a bit. I'm serious. You've got to go, because people don't know what the scale of what the enemy is. I mean, I think many more do now. The COVID thing has propelled a huge chunk of people into the inquiring space, and many are all doing their own particular paths, and they're all valid because the whole thing needs to be pulled together in some sort of commonality of understanding as best as we can get it. We're always going to vary in our, hue and degree of understandings or where we put the emphasis. But the resource that we've got is ourselves. It's the ultimate resource. All the wealth are the people that you know. And you could say, well, it's not that good at the moment. No, but it's latent. In most people, it's latent. But we've got to operate on the basis that we can set a fire under people's backsides. Because although it stings at first, in the end, it gets you moving a bit quicker, and that gets quite exhilarating. You've got to, it's these sorts of things. The problem is all there is, or a problem, an aspect of it, and you mentioned it a bit earlier, it's to do with much of the modern technology that we're now infested with, particularly the phone, is the great attention-sucking device of the age. And people are, given phones when they're far too young, he said, like an old fart, but they are. Children with iPads and things like this when they're 5 and 6, this is just madness. It's madness because the brain can't develop properly. It's as if, I've often said this, that when you're young growing up, I don't know, you probably had it. You had those days when you're a mopey teenager and you're bored. You know that stuff? Yeah. That's really important. It's really important that all young people growing up have prolonged periods of irritating boredom. That's what promotes creativity. You need that. You go, yeah, I used to remember my mum, I'm bored. Well, find something to do. When she lost, after I'd said it for the 50th time, So I did. I'd pick up a pencil, start drawing badly and hate that and throw it in the bin and all that kind of stuff. You've got to go through, I think, to some degree, these sorts of situations because so much has been laid on a plate now, and I do sound like an old fart when I say this, right? I know it. The impetus to actually initiate your own action is reduced. So you've got loads of people now with websites and stuff making AI so-called music, thinking that it's music. It isn't, because it's just a copy of some other thing that you heard 15 hours ago or whatever, right? This is a human thing to keep doing that. But it's not contributing much unique about these individuals. They're just all computer wizards, and we need those, except they're all going to be made redundant by AI now, so that's over. It's human beings getting in touch with the fact that they really are an individual. You're all individuals. I'm not, that classic line from Python. So there's a lot going on that we've got to deal with. I don't think we can take it all on board. There'll be some things that will cut through huge chunks of the problem like a hot knife through butter. Then we'll meet another point of resistance and so on and so forth. There's a lot to tidy up. I do think, though, shifting it slightly, and you've mentioned it, an orientation towards moral and ethical behavior as guided by the law, not man-made stuff, the law, is absolutely vital. In fact, we're not going to achieve it without it. The Creator won't let us. I'm absolutely convinced of it. No way are you doing your own thing without these laws in place. Because however you want to describe it, doesn't even need to be present. It's already set up that way in this space. This is how it works. And of course, the education systems don't teach people that. They just teach people how to become clever, but not think, because your individual thinking is your route to your own personal levels of wisdom, I think. And so, we get into topics that they probably don't even mention at schools, do they? They don't even mention these things. They probably don't even have... do they have debating societies? They're bloody useful. So you can get humiliated when you're wrong in public. Always a good lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Not attractive, but useful. Really useful.
You know what you were just saying about teenage kids there going through that boredom phase. Well, the headache that boredom can cause is actually a form of stress. Boredom can actually be a form of stress, because when you're bored, it means that your hippocampus is not stimulated. And when your hippocampus isn't stimulated, there's nothing to stop the cortisol from flooding through and stimulating the amygdala and making you feel even more shit, until you actually think of something to do. But I think if somebody had told me that when I was younger, then and if somebody had actually inspired me to do something or told me, I think the mistake that a lot of adults make is thinking that maybe teenagers haven't got the intellectual capacity to learn. I mean, I think if somebody had actually explained it to me and maybe given me the bigger picture, especially if somebody had said, by the way, there's a group out there, a religious group, an extremist religious group, that is actually, this is what their plans are and this is what they're going to do. They're going to kill you, and this is what you need to do to stop them. So it's up to you if you want to live in a totalitarian nightmare dystopian future, or if you want to be free. Because if you want to be free, then it starts with money. It's like, oh, really? But let me tell you what teenagers will be interested in, and that is number go up with Bitcoin. Because even the dumbest of the dumbed down people, they will still see number go up. Oh, right, so number go up tomorrow. So that means if I get it in my possession today, then the number go up is actually in my pocket. And so they're just like, oh, right, well, actually, so if I start working for this now, the better value I have and the sooner I can maybe quit being a slave to the system, and I can go on holiday and do what I want, or I can actually start, putting my efforts towards this fight, towards this worldwide evil that is, coming down on us. And also, I mean, even though teenagers don't really respect their bodies too much because the novelty hasn't really worn off. They eat shit and all this crap. Whereas I think very quickly, especially when they see young kids, getting fat and all this kind of stuff, they still appreciate good food. You can't, there isn't much that can top a steak and black peppercorn sauce and chips, mate. There's not a lot.
I had one on Saturday night. I had my son, I just gave him, I said, go buy us a couple of steaks because we didn't have anything in. So we got some steaks and he got some sweet potatoes and they were roasted in the oven. And then we took the fat from the steaks and poured it all over the sweet potatoes. It was my mouth's watering as I'm thinking about it now. Yeah. It's the tastiest thing because when you get a steak and it's wonderfully flavoursome with like salt and all that kind of stuff, it was just amazing. And I went, there you go. I'm a happy bloke. I'm a caveman. Ugh. Yeah. It works. Yeah, it's hardwired into people is all that kind of stuff, including young people. And, of course, this whole thing about generations, and I sound like about young people and middle-aged people. I mean, I think this has become a kind of an obsession recently. I'm a boomer, apparently. I was born in the very last year of boomerishness, which was 1960, right? And so it never meant out to me as I grew up. I just think it's a joke. I see these quotes. People are going, it's the boomers. Once we've got rid of them, it'll all get sorted out. I'm going, oh, another numpty. It's mad. This whole generational splitting is another device from them to separate out the strands of us as a community. If you go back, say, 100 years, before everybody started moving around all over the place to work here, there, and everywhere in some office, only subsequently to be ultimately replaced by an AI bot, which is coming up now, Grandma and Grandpa lived nearby. Mum and Dad's brothers and sisters were nearby, if they had them. You had nephews, you had cousins to play with. And also, I did, as I grew up. I was sort of like at the tail end of the old way, I guess, now looking back on it. Not that there aren't communities that still operate like that in this country, they are, but they're reducing in number rapidly. And so no one sat around thinking, oh, we're in a different generation. It didn't work like that at all. I mean, my dad was not a teenager because they hadn't been invented in the 1930s. They didn't exist. It's a cultural sort of overlay. Now you've got people talking about Generation X. I don't even know what they are. I can't even be bothered following it. It's stupid. I just think, I don't know how many babies have got born today. Obviously not enough, right, from our point of view, into the English and the Scots and the Welsh. But according to what I'm told, not enough. However, out of those, I reckon the percentage of those that are going to get switched on early on in life is exactly the same as it was 10,000 years ago. Maybe it's 5%. I don't know what it is. It's in the minority, but there are some, it doesn't matter what you do, they just pop up and they get it. They get stuff quicker than everybody else. They just do. And it always throws up that way. It's nothing to do with the age of people. It just means they've got a different set of conditions. So what's the criticism? The boomers are sitting on all the money. They had a lovely time and it's all their fault. No, you numbnuts. It's got nothing to do with it. If you'd have been born then, you'd have been exactly the same. That's what, all those idiots fighting in World War One. Well, guess what? If I'd have been born in 1890, I'd have been one of them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known any better. I'd have all have read his newspapers and stuff and had a crap education. Count me in, I'm off. It's ridiculous. It's so easy to judge people in the past. That's why we do it. Because you don't get any feedback because they're not around to actually give you a mouthful. But it is mad. It's mad. I put my hope in intelligent people, irrespective of what age they are. And there's always those, and it's a matter of welding us together to some degree, or being part of that, or supporting it. So that those who are the best of us come to the fore.
This is what this radio station is all about. It's
absolutely
it's bringing those people together who are listening to this.
Yeah,
that is literally what this episode is all about. And that acceleration of people listening will massively increase when, like I said, there's economic incentive on the line. Number go up. That's ultimately what it's all about. Literally.
Number go up. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, it was an expression that we used to use in Bitcoin a long time ago. So number go up, because there are still a lot of people in Bitcoin who literally they don't know anything else. That's literally all they know.
No, I've got it from scanning lots of places. Absolutely. That's what I was saying earlier. This thing about basically they're all pyramid Ponzi schemes in culture.
Yeah.
They may not be in technology. I accept that they're an advanced version of it. But in terms of the way that people communicate about it, cough, that's what it's about. So Bitcoin clearly is not anything that people are using to actually buy and sell goods on services to any degree. Certainly not.
Not yet.
It just not at 7 transactions per second. Exactly. It's a joke. I mean, it's just, and yet people come and want to talk to you about it. And it's interesting. We had a presentation from someone about a week ago, and it was fine. I went along, and someone had turned up with one of these sort of crypto projects. Looks really good from a certain perspective, but that's not my perspective anymore. It used to be. Right up to about 2015, where I went, right, to hell with all this. It's a waste of time. I did. I just sort of cut out. But for about 20 years, I've been involved in looking at this business, that business, minting gold coins, doing all sorts of stuff. Some of the ideas were good, but they never came to fruition properly. But the orientation of this pitch was, you get involved in this, and we can make a cut on all the transaction fees. I'm going, well, that, from a certain perspective, got that. Are you interested? No. Why not? Because I want to destroy the bank. I don't want to be involved in any aspect where the culture is, I'm going to make a lot of money. This must sound like arsehole to certain people listening, I guess.
Absolutely.
Why? What's the point of me doing that? That's not where the wealth is. It's in me living peaceably with people. And I think I've said it before. My goal was to wake up one morning and know that everybody within, say, 5 or 15 miles of where I sat was not beholden to the bank at all.
Yeah.
I want to live with people like that. I want to know what that might be like, even for just one day before I drop dead. I just want to see what people are like, because I think they're going to look amazing on it. And then people go, bloody hell, it could have been like this all the time. Yeah, it could, but it wasn't, was it? But, you've helped to bring it about. That's the task. It's a massive challenge, because historically it appears that although it's been done a few times at a state level, when they've implemented those things, as we've said before, those nations have been literally bombed into oblivion because of it. It's definitely been a key part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Gives people a lot to think about. But one thing I will say is that there are still a lot of people, and there are some smart people out there. You just got to find them. And I've met people who have literally got the same mindset as you. They're just like, I'm sort of getting on a bit. All I want to know is that I've left the future, that's going to roll out for the next generations and grandkids, in good, safe hands. Like, I'm not interested in finance or wealth or anything anymore. I'm not chasing that. This is bigger than that. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than ever. It's about leaving a better world for everybody, knowing
is.
that you contributed to it, and that
Absolutely.
no amount of finance or fiat currency can fulfill that desire. That's literally from the heart. It's human nature, which is what this lot are trying to invert, subvert, and pervert.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely. I don't know where. I
think, isn't it? Who was it who said it? England expects every man to do his duty. Was that Nelson? Well, I expect that. Actually, I expect it of me, and I always feel a bit crappy when I didn't do my duty as well as I know I could have, which is good. I mean, it's not good at the time, but I'm aware of it. I'm conscious of it. And, everybody says nothing in life is free. Well, that's a lie. Your entire life is free. I don't know how I got given one, and everybody else got given one, if that's the right way of phrasing it. But I got one, and here I am walking around talking, and we're having this conversation, and it's amazing. And it's also amazing how cocked up it all is. That's the bit, and that's why we're here. Those of you who've got a nice sensitivity to these things, because it isn't always nice, because you're in a state of uncomfortableness a lot of the time, which is a good sign, by the way. You should be. You should always be slightly, a bit like I am all the time, right? You go, it's exhausting. Well, it just comes with the territory. It's not, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And it ain't easy.
Yeah, a bit like your body being in a state of fasting, where it's healing itself.
Yeah.
You just have to endure it and live with it and enjoy it.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed it today, Gary. I've enjoyed this. Fastest hour in broadcasting.
Absolutely.